Now, going on to the cultural part of the podcast, you have Hollywood on strike as the actors and actresses join the writers' unions. Now, previously, the writers have been on strike, and I know we probably all knew and cared about it for weeks. I'm kidding. Obviously, no one cares because it really doesn't affect your daily life. Now, the Writers Guild, or whatever they call themselves, their union, they've been on strike for, I think, several weeks now with copious amounts of unrealistic demands. And now the actors and actresses are actually joining them. Now, I believe it's the first time in a few decades where no, it's the first time since the 1960s with the actors and the writers actually both working in tandem and going on strike together. And you have terrible actress by the name of Franz Drescher, which she does. I shouldn't say she's terrible. She is very good at her job. When she was in the sitcom Friends, she was the insufferable girlfriend of Chandler Bing, and she's known for having that very nasal voice. So she does her role well, but some people are just they're so good at acting, or maybe that's just who she is in real life. But nevertheless, when asked for comment, and of course she's an actress, she said, quote, "We are the victims here," unquote, which is hilarious to think anyone in Hollywood elites like herself would consider herself a victim when they make more money in a single movie than most people make in their entire lives. Now, the biggest demand that the two groups are really pushing for is they want a complete ban on artificial intelligence, also known as AI, in Hollywood. Probably because they know that it will do their jobs infinitely better than they themselves can do. Now, when it comes to the intricacies of the exact components of AI that they want to have banned from Hollywood, they want to make sure that AI cannot write or rewrite literally material. They also make sure it cannot be used to source material, and they want to make sure an MBA covered material can't be used to train AI. Now, the conspiracy theory or the interesting theory would be they replaced all these writers, very talented writers, decades ago with computers. Since most Hollywood films these days are nothing but pejorative copy-paste. The best example being Walt Disney, where it seems like all they do is Control-V, or copy-paste. And their movies are simply a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, which, fun little home experiment. Every time you do that, you degrade the actual image. And in their case, the intellectual property and the actual quality of the material. A good example would be the Transformers movies, too. Cars turn into robots, things go boom. I just told you the most accurate description of every single Transformers movie to date. I think they're up to 8 or 9. Now they have animals turning into robots. So some might say they're evolving a little bit, but Michael Bay's a very talented director. Big explosions go boom. I just summarized his entire acting class. Or that'd be his directing class if you were to take a directing class from him. So you already have these films being so boring. Every movie is basically the same. These writers see the writing on the wall. They know robots will do the job better than them because they're already just copy-pasting everything they do these days, basically. And it'll be interesting to see as we have CGI and you have quantum. The more compute power we have, the cheaper it gets, the easier it will be to actually have full CGI and deepfakes of actors and just make a movie completely automatically. That's not outside the realm of possibility, especially within our lifetime. It'll be interesting to see how it actually comes to the forefront. Now, interestingly enough, Bob Iger, the current CEO of Disney, he noted that the writer and the actors unions have unrealistic expectations with their strikes, and they're only adding to the industry disruptions by taking such actions. Now, I don't say this often. Actually, I might not say this ever, but he has a good point. From a business perspective, this is what a lot of people have issues when it comes to unions. They only want the upside. They never want the risk. So they want to have a disproportionate amount of profits, but if the company loses money, they will never offer to give up a single penny, even though the company might go out of business. Now, Disney in particular, that company's bleeding money left and right. I mean, a good example would be Indiana Jones, which was ruined. Actually, ironically, it was ruined because of Hollywood writers, so actually he should probably be like, oh yeah, I don't need you anymore. I mean, look what you did to all my intellectual property. You destroyed them, successfully losing money on all those movies. Now, when asked to elaborate during an interview on CNBC's Squawk Box, which is separate from The View. I did a little bit of research, and I thought that was the other term for The View, but it is a separate entity apparently. And when asked during the interview, David Saber from the Sun Conference Audio and asked him more, you had Bob say, quote, "It's very disturbing to me. We've talked about these disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from the virus from China, if I say it, it might get banned, which is ongoing and not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add that disruption," Bob Iger said. He continued saying, quote, "I understand any labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members, to get the most compensation and to be compensated fairly based on the value that they deliver. We've managed as an industry to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflects the values that the directors contribute to this great business. We want to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they're adding to the set of the challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive," unquote. Now, Bob has a lot of great points in that because the industry is being disrupted. Rewind the clock back maybe 5-10 years. Really, all you need to do to make it a copious amount of money in terms of Hollywood and movies is you need an A-list actor and half a script, and they would just knock it out of the park and they'd all make copious amounts of money. Nowadays, there's less and less A-list actors that can actually propel a movie to new heights. You have your outliers like Tom Cruise. If you put him in anything, he'll print money for pretty much the dawn of time. But you have the formula changing in Hollywood. You also have huge amounts of competition. Nowadays, anyone with a webcam or a cell phone can produce content and entertainment. Though I would say this is one of the best, The Topping Show. But there's a lot more competition. You didn't have this option 20 years ago. You had to have a dedicated news station. Now, everyone has the opportunity to be an entertainer. So you have increased competition. You also have streaming. That's changing the whole equation for Hollywood because depending on the intellectual property, it might not even be financially viable to make a movie. You saw this big trend when I was growing up. One of the biggest categories for movies were parodies of movies. I believe, I'm trying to remember, there were a couple of movies where all they did was they did a parody of 300. And there's a whole fascinating, few really unique offering at the time. But on the downside, I believe those movies on average would make maybe between $40 and $80 million. And thanks to streaming and illegal downloading, it's one of those things where you don't see those anymore on the silver screen. The only thing you see at a movie theater for the most part these days are Hollywood blockbusters. And those take a lot more risk because those take an enormous amount of investment from the upfront cost to make a Hollywood blockbuster film. I would love to know the CGI or just the budget for the computers to make an intro for a Marvel movie. They have whole data centers of servers, storage, networking, all working together so they can actually make it look realistic and look it really fancy. That's a huge upfront cost, and it's a risk. You don't know if you're going to make that money back. And given the talent of writers that Disney need these days, they aren't making that money back. They're losing money. So you have an exponential amount of competition, decreased capabilities from the actors. The whole equation is being changed, which is why they're scared to death that they'll be replaced, because I guarantee you, you're going to have a lot of automation disrupt a lot of jobs. Yes, it will create new jobs as well, as technology has done since the dawn of time. But I think a lot of these writers and actors, and they're all worried they don't know how to adapt. And a wise man once said, adapt or die. It'll be interesting to see where they go from there. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. I especially want to thank you for taking time to subscribe. Trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of July. Greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget to take time to like the video as well as let me have a couple comments in there so that we could constantly make the show better and better. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers. Heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.